I'm joined by Brit Marling, one of the stars of The East, and Zalbert Mangrich, who is the director, and the two of them wrote this script together. I wanted to start by asking about the tone of the movie. I wanted you to talk a little bit about that.
I mean, we were interested in a space that's morally gray, where there is no right answer.
When you're watching the film, you keep looking for, well, who's the protagonist and who's the antagonist, and it keeps switching. And I think that's sort of the time that we're living in. It's hard to identify who's responsible because I am responsible. And so everyone's sort of playing a part in it. And I think that's where sort of like the moral stickiness of it comes from. And Sarah's trying to find a way to navigate that moral stickiness and set her compass in a better direction maybe than it was set to begin with.
I'm curious about the difference between Sarah's activism and the activism of those in the East, because she's the only one who isn't motivated by something that happened to her personally.
I think Sarah's the idea that like knowledge is the mechanism for cure, that a huge part of it is about just knowing. The metaphor we used to always use when we were writing Sarah is that she's kind of like a thoroughbred racehorse, but with the blinders on. So she's like running around and around the track and getting so much pleasure out of just being a fast runner and the best runner.
I think that we are all motivated by our personal experiences and by our parents' experiences and our grandparents' experiences. And so maybe in some ways she's trying to make up for the years that she spent blind. Because it's kind of a pity that someone as smart and as interesting as Sarah would be so blind for so long.
Imagining how someone who wasn't on the left but on the right would read this film, and you seem to think that they could find themes in this film that would resonate with them.
I don't know. I mean, I think that there's a collective sense of frustration, and it doesn't really matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, if you're on the right or the left. There's this feeling that there's no way to hold people accountable, particularly people in power, and usually that involves sort of corporate power. And so there's something of a kind of wish fulfillment about the East, like whether or not you agree with how they go about it.
Frank Baum, when he made The Wizard of Oz, made The Wicked Witch of the East because he thought that Washington was screwing over Kansas. And
Is that why?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's so fantastic.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah. And so he thought Washington was a corrupt place that was screwing over Kansas, and so it's the Wicked Witch of the East. And I was always fascinated by that. I liked the Oz books when I was a kid. And then we've always thought of the East as sort of the East Coast and New England and this Tony center of power. And it's so funny, this idea of like New England privilege or American preppiness. And so it was interesting to us to take a bunch of kids from the sort of New England East and make them turn towards the other, reject all these luxuries, and sort of go towards the opposite direction from the West.
This movie sort of came out of an experience we had a couple summers before where we went traveling in search of like direct action groups and anarchists and the freaking culture, and we were feeling angry and frustrated, and there was a desire to sort of find a group that was organized and intelligent and thinking of ways to use all the tools of now to be effective. And we're still looking for that group. So we made a film about it.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, guys.